The views and opinions expressed on the Craig L. Hayes Show do not necessarily reflect those of Westgate Resort ownership or management. And now, on with the show.
Extra, extra, read all about it. Get your copies while they last. Stop the presses.
And now for something completely different.
Are you ready for a little truth? Are we not entertained? Wisdom is the proper use of knowledge and experience. There are no safe spaces here. The truth shall make you free. It's showtime! So you want the truth, but can you handle the truth? Well, here's another fine mess you've gotten us into. Now that's entertainment. Enlighten me a little. What you say is quite logical. And what did we learn? Prepare yourself for a little sensory overload. I came here for the truth. 7 years ago, stand by the roll show intro. Roll show intro in 3, 2, 1, go.
This is the Craig L. Hayes Show.
Hello, America, family, friends, and listeners all around this planet we call home. This is the Craig L. Hayes Show, and I am Craig L. Hayes. And it is the 18th of November, 2024. And like other shows I've done, we are broadcasting or recording this live from the Westgate Resort, Las Vegas, in Elvis Presley's dressing room. And by being able to do that, I have to have a big shout out to Cammie Christensen, the president of the hotel, Dawn Rawls, who she's the vice president of marketing and entertainment, and John Peer for helping. He's the technical director of entertainment. And they've all three granted me graciously the privilege of coming here and making some of these shows here at the Westgate in Elvis Presley's dressing room. It is quite the awe-inspiring ability to do this, and I absolutely love being able to come here and talk about show business with friends and colleagues in a room that I've spent 30 years in, and especially in Elvis Presley's dressing room. Quite the coup on my part for being able to do this, and I express my thanks again to the Westgate Resort for allowing me to do this. We're going to continue today with our interviews that we've been doing from this room and talk about people who've worked behind the scenes. And I've got another old timer with me today, and he's been worked out of the IATSE 720 local here since 1969 at a whole bunch of hotels and stuff. And I was looking at his resume, and he's been just about everywhere you can imagine in this town as it was growing and getting bigger. But the funny part about it is that him and I have not really worked other than just once here and once there together. But that's okay. We're going to listen to a couple of his stories and see what he has to say. And his name is Forestt Hancock. Thank you for coming in, Forestt.
You're welcome. It's great to be here.
Oh, I'm so happy you came in to do this stuff and to do an interview with us. It's going to be quite enjoyable, I bet. I don't know if you had a chance to listen to any other of the interviews we've done on YouTube, but what we kind of do here is a little bit of, we talk about your past, where you were, where you came from. You know, if you were born in California, you're smart to have left. And then came to Vegas, and you know, what is a little bit about your background, your history? I think you did some military service too, if I remember correctly.
Correct.
It seems like all these guys that I've had over here in the last few times I've been doing these things, all you guys have had a military experience, which I think is awesome. You know, I never got to do it myself, and I don't know if I'd ever really want to. You know, but
Yeah,
different times, different places.
sure. Well, there was a draft back in the day when I got out of high school. So you either, had something physically or mentally wrong with you, or you were pretty much going to go into the service. And it wasn't like you had a choice. It was kind of like it was facing us all. And yeah, I graduated high school in '65. Oh, I was born in Vegas in '47, so I'll start
Wow.
with that. But grew up here, and it was a great town. Always had a good time.
Which high school?
Las Vegas High School.
Of course, had to be Las Vegas High.
There was only Rancho and Gorman, I think, at that time.
Yeah,
Of
there's
course, there was Henderson, which I can't remember what that
Basic.
was. Basic.
Yeah.
That was pretty much it for. I think Valley had just started. Like when I graduated, their first class. I don't think was until '67 or '68. So a graduating class. So
Yeah.
it was only a couple of high schools.
Yeah, I lived right down by that. I remember them building that, when I was just a little kid, So,
Yeah.
and I went to Valley and graduated from Valley. So, but the funny part is I went to Fremont. Did you go to Fremont
I did.
also?
I went to Crestwood and then Fremont.
Another Fremont kid and another Vegas High guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was in a unicycle act at Fremont, and the guy I was with, he played tuba for the band, and so I got drafted as a Fremont junior high school guy to go to the band and ride unicycle and pretend like I could play tuba with the marching band and do all their things.
Sounds
I
pretty.
don't know how that got happened, but
Yeah.
we were on TV all the time, getting filmed on this stuff. It was
I
pretty
think I
funny.
remember seeing you do that. It's like it made connections when I heard you did that.
That was me. Yeah, if you saw it, it was the only tuba playing unicycle act in high school marching band or whatever. But I was at Fremont, so
Yeah.
so I would have to go and go over to the Vegas High and do the marching stuff with those guys, and I'd have to get back to Fremont and go to class there, and
Sure.
and stuff because. Like I was told by my guys, that don't run anybody over, and
Don't hurt anyone.
yeah, don't drop the tuba. I can't play tuba, whatever. But it looked
Did you
cool.
march or did you perform in the Eldorado Parade? Did you do that?
No, we did not do that one.
Oh, okay.
So
It
anyways,
was a big deal back then.
oh, that was huge. I mean, when I was a kid,
Eldorado
we all
Parade.
dressed up in our cowboy outfits, and we all did that stuff. Oh, that's not about me. This is about you.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. Certain things spark me, and I go, oh yeah, that's right. I did that and that and that and that. And, we go on and start talking about it. But this is your hour,
Okay.
your shining hour, your 15 minutes of fame, whatever you want to
All
call
right,
it.
thanks. Well, I'll tell you about my how I first got introduced to show business. I had friends that were taking stage technical, in other words, stagehand class. And in '64, you had to go before the class, what was the class before, and actually you had to present yourself to see if they wanted you. I mean, I had to go, and it was kind of like what the union used to be, where you used to have to go before the body to get to be a member, and you had to tell them why you wanted to do it, and it was very different. And I'd taken 3 years of drafting, and I thought, well, maybe I can be of assistance. I always liked working with electrical things, and so it seemed like a nice fit. And I'm so glad it happened because I met. Is it okay to mention names of people that I?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Fred Joseph
I sure do.
and Richard Long. In fact, he used to work in this hotel
For a long
for
time.
a long time.
Yeah.
And I knew both of them from grade school, or Fred actually in junior high. We had little motorcycles together, and that was a great time. It was a great time. And but anyway, I had to actually go before the previous class and say why I wanted to do it, and they said, okay, well, we'll let you come in. So that was the start of such a wonderful thing that happened to me. And I really didn't think about getting into the business until I got out of the Navy, and that's when you're 21 years old, you start to figure you better get a direction on what you want to do. And it was a very sobering time, and thank goodness that I still had Richard and Fred for friends, and they said, well, why don't you go down and sign up with the local? And I said, oh, okay. And that's how I happened to get in, and I ended up breaking in at the Bonanza. I broke in on a spotlight where your dad, I believe, was the technical director, if I'm not mistaken, I think.
I remember him working there when I was a little kid, but I have no idea what he was doing
I think
there.
he was like in charge of, seemed like he was running the whole ball game. I mean, he was very,
Okay, yeah, it could have been. I remember him being TD at the Sahara and at the Riviera,
right,
but I don't remember the Bonanza, but I know he was there because,
yeah.
I remember him working there.
Right. And that's where I broke in on a spotlight, and at that time, it was a pretty high pressure job because there wasn't any place like to learn that in a college or that I'll get back to another. I did take a theater class at UNLV after I graduated high school, and we actually had a nice theater at Vegas High. We had a traditional theater. I mean, they used to do opera and all kinds of things there, and I'm not sure when they built that theater, but we used to have, the students would actually work for like dance recitals and things, and we'd come in and provide help with the setting up the lighting and run the show for people, and sometimes they would even bring stagehands in from 720 to do the show, and we'd get to work and meet these people, and that was a great thing that happened.
That's a great training idea right
Oh,
there.
it was.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It was such a wonderful thing to just fall into it. I was just I can't say enough about how lucky I was to get that introduction, and it was always fun. And now I'm slipping back.
No, that's good. That's what we want to hear because
Okay.
part of this is where you came from and how you
Yeah.
got into it because
Sure.
that's part of this is, I've been trying to tell people that stagehands aren't born, pop out of their mom and were stagehands. Some
Right.
people did all kinds of different jobs and then they got
Yeah.
into this.
Right.
So
And I'd had 3 years of drafting, and we had a play called, just a second, what was the name of the play? Oh, gosh. It was The Diary of Anne Frank.
Oh.
And in reading it, I think everybody knows it takes place mostly in an attic. And so to me, it seemed like, well, that should be a 2-story set. And, thinking about the drafting part of it, I thought, well, I'll tell the teacher what I think. And she was like, oh, yeah, that sounds great. And I think it was the first time that had ever occurred where anybody did a big set that had 2 stories. And I drew up all the plans, and they gave them to the fellas over in the part of the school that had carpenters,
the wood shop
all
area.
the wood shop,
Yeah, the wood shop. Yeah.
people, and they looked at my plans and said, "Well, that's very nice, but we'll take the dimensions, but we'll basically build it to what we need." And I said, "Well, I don't want it to hurt anybody, so go for it." But it turned out really well, and the teacher was very happy, and so that was my first little venture into doing anything theatrical, and I think I enjoyed that, and from then on it just got better and better. And I served a couple years active duty in the Navy right after, I had 1 year before I had to go active. I was in the Navy Reserve, and you had to do 2 years of active duty. So in '67, I went active and got out of November of '68. And I served on an aircraft carrier,
Which one?
the Yorktown,
Okay.
which was CVS 10, and I think it's in South Carolina. I think it's a museum now.
Yeah.
And I got to go through torpedoman school, and torpedoman school at first, I wanted to be a sonarman so bad that, I'd see too many World War II movies with, guys in submarines, and I thought, gee, that'd be great. And so I get to be a torpedoman, and at that time, the Mark 44 torpedo was what had sonar capabilities, and it was electronics, and it was a great education for me to get into. And I was then sent to the Yorktown, and we had W Division, which was made up of gunner's mate technicians, they worked on nuclear depth charges. So we had folks that worked on nuclear depth charges, and we had torpedomen in the same company. And we lived in the midship of the ship. We lived in the middle of it, and to get into where our quarters were, you had to have in the Navy usually, and where enlisted men are, it's just like free for all. It's like being in a gymnasium when you serve. People can walk through your quarters, and you really don't have much privacy. But because we were around top secret stuff, you had to check in at our hatch, and there was a Marine there that would watch everything. So you didn't have to worry about somebody taking your stuff. You could leave things out, and it was great. And we had air conditioning, which, because we had nuclear depth charges below us, we had air conditioning. And in over by Vietnam, that was a real plus, was having nice sleeping quarters, especially if you grew up in the desert. That humidity was murder on me.
Yeah, our 115 at 3% humidity is nothing. Until you get to where it's high humidity.
Compared to high humidity like in Vietnam, I'm real lucky that I didn't end up as a soldier over there. That would have been tough for me. So anyway, I did my time on the Yorktown, and then got out and looked around, and I actually worked for a company. It was very good, because I think people that get into stagehand work too soon don't appreciate the wages and the conditions. And I worked for a fellow. He made equipment for Keno machines, and I know everybody remembers the cages with the balls. He would lease that, and he also made a machine. This is how backwards, how things were. At one time, the Keno writers would make a copy of, they didn't have a carbon copy. They would actually mark 2 cards, and then you would get one, and then they would put one in the drawer. And this fella, and he was out of Reno, he came up with a machine that actually would make a copy of the Keno, the numbers that the people play. And he was the first one to come up with this, and everybody had to have it. All the hotels and everybody had to have it. And we would get calls in the middle of the night. It was me and another fellow that would take care of all the problems with this equipment. And we would get a call that we had to go out and change out the cage or fix one of the machines that broke down. And I found out how superstitious people are in the gambling business. And they would actually, if say a game got hit $12,000 or something like that, a lot of times the guy running the game, he would call us up and say, I need that cage out of here right now. And this might be in the middle of the night, and you had to get out there and change out the cage to make everybody happy. And that was a great education for me as a young kid. But it wasn't paying very much, and when my friends that I'd known in high school said, well, you ought to go down to the local and sign up, I was so eager to get to do something different. And then I started breaking in, and I broke in at the Bonanza, and I can't remember a couple other places on Spotlight. And back then, learning how to run a spotlight, there really wasn't a school to learn that. You basically had to learn on the job. And I don't know how they do it now, because you can't just take somebody cold and throw them on one and expect them to be able to follow humans the way humans move. They've tried it with mechanical moving lights, and they found out that it really doesn't work very well. You really need a human to do it. It's like camera work. You can't really make a machine follow someone like with a camera. So anyway, I ended up taking my first call was at for electric. I did one job. I did flower drum song at the old Thunderbird, and it was what's the name of the show? The flower drum song. And I worked props backstage, and the big cue of the show. I think it was Jack Sue was the lead, and I can't remember the female, but in the show, she would throw these 12 ice cubes on him, and they were plastic 1-inch cubes, and I had to make sure that I caught all these because the dancers were coming out, and if they stepped on one of those, it could be real serious, possibly an injury. So that was my big deal of that show, was to find those cubes. It would be all over the stage. And it's funny the things you remember.
Oh, yeah.
But that was my first real job that paid something as a stagehand, was being a prop man. I didn't want to be a prop man, but that was what there was, so I made the best of it. And then little by little, in late '69, I get a call to go into the Dunes Hotel for a 4-hour call. And I go in, and they're building a Casino de Paris for 1970. And I got in on the show change, and then I got hired as a backstage electrician, and we would do everything but pyro and make sure everything's working. We had to do dry ice, where we would drop the dry ice into a hot bucket and make dry ice fog for the acts, and it was a great time. I happened to be, luckily enough, I got into the electric department, and they were doing a thing called the Crazy Car, which was a little car that they would run in the front of a film that was part of a Paris landscape, like riding in Paris. And it was a little car, and it had stoplights and taillights, and my big deal there was I could wire that. I could wire all the switches and do all this stuff. And they were impressed, so they kept me around. So I had a great time, and I worked in that show for 11 years. We had 3 different versions of the show, and back in those days, usually about every 2 or 3 years, you did a whole show change. And a show change back then is, they didn't just bring it in like now, where everything is like, all you do is put things together. Back then, you actually helped build what needed to be built.
Yeah, out in the parking lot, right?
Really, yeah, it was.
Yeah, I mean, there's a parking lot show change, basically, is what a lot of them did that.
And usually the last couple days before you opened, you were living there. I mean, if you had very little time for sleep, you would work there until that show was ready to go. So that sort of business, I learned that you basically have to have things ready when that curtain goes up, it better be ready to go. That was probably the best lesson I learned.
So you worked there with Don Toto?
Yeah, Don Toto came in a few years after I was there. Yeah, in fact, yes, I think I was instrumental in getting Don into the spotlight. He wanted to break in, and I managed to get him in there.
Yeah, I remember a few of the guys there, like Pat Huffine.
Yeah, I knew Pat Huffine.
Randy Cardinal.
Randy was a carpenter there for quite a while when I was there. Really a good soul, very good guy. We got along great. Usually carpenters and electricians bump heads, but I tell you what, Randy was always a great guy to work around.
Yeah.
Other people said, "Oh no," and I said, "No, Randy's always been great to me."
Yeah. Randy could get a little ramped up a little bit with people. He had a little bit of a temper, but he wanted people to do things right because I worked with him a bunch, and he wanted things done.
Yeah,
We were professionals. Let's do it right.
he was a perfectionist.
He was absolutely. He was, and those type of people, I never had a problem with them.
No, really.
I never had a problem
I
with
just
a
want
guy.
things to work well, and Randy was always a great guy.
Yeah. No, and I get that. So, hey, we're going to end this episode right here, and we're going to come back and talk more about it because we've only gotten to 1970 something, and we still got 50 years of your life to talk about. So until then, Talbot, take it.
This is the Craig L. Hayes Show.